Hello everyone and welcome back to another day of this 2021 Noirvember challenge. Thank you so much for joining me today as we're going to talk about one of the fastest noir films that I have seen, one that lasts around 73 minutes, and it's none other than Desperate, released in the glorious year of 1947 and directed by Anthony Mann.
I think we can convince him to go to the police.
Charlie, remember the baby?
I'm sorry I can't give you a choice of food, Steve. But it won't make much difference.
All you got's me.
Right now, you're all I want.
As you can imagine by the length of this movie, 73 minutes, this is undoubtedly a B movie, although you almost wish that it would have gotten an A movie treatment. Perhaps one that is not that well known, even within the filmography of very excellent B movies that Anthony Mann directed. But don't let that dissuade you from watching Desperate, because this is an extremely thrilling movie, a fantastic, fast-paced noir in which Anthony Mann started laying down the foundations for his most prominent B noir efforts, such as Railroaded, T-Man, or Raw Deal. In Desperate, you find a basic story, essentially of a heist gone wrong and a case of a wrong man accused of something he didn't do. And you have a very exciting confrontation between Raymond Burr, one of Noir's favorite villains, and Steve Brodie, an actor who usually played supporting parts, but in Desperate, he is the protagonist. So again, the story, the premise is fairly simple, but it is absolutely compensated by the atmosphere and the narration style that Anthony Mann and Marya E achieve together. In Desperate's case though, unlike what we just commented in the last video for The Killing, the heist only takes up the initial part of the movie, and it's really again the consequences derived from that heist that truly are the focus and occupy the rest of the movie. Desperate in many aspects is a movie of firsts. It was the first and only protagonist role for actor Steve Brodie. It was also the first tough, heavy villain role that Raymond Burr played in film noir, and it was also for Anthony Mann the first movie for which he got writing credits, since unlike the previous movies we've talked about, Desperate is based on a story developed by Anthony Mann and Dorothy Atlas, then turned into a screenplay by writer Harry Essex, and also for Anthony Mann, this is the first movie after a series of B films that he had made for several studios. The first movie that he felt he could truly call his own, the one he had more creative control over, thus one in which he started to hone his talent. Precisely is that characteristic what makes Desperate worth watching. Even though, as I said at the beginning, the story is fairly simple, what makes this movie special is the fact that you can start seeing glimpses of Anthony Mann's magic with so many terrific shots, particularly the scenes in which you have Raymond Burr and Steve Brodie against one another could easily be placed, in my opinion, in one of the best Alfred Hitchcock movies or even Samuel Fuller's. That is how highly I think of Desperate. That is why, regardless of the nature of the story, I wanted to include Desperate in this Noirvember challenge. Because if there is one director whose work I've come to admire even more this year, especially his noir films, is that of Anthony Mann. I have to admit that I was most familiar with his westerns.
A lot of you folks have read this story, The Man from Laramie in the Saturday Evening Post. Well, we made a picture about it.
But I was not that familiar with his noir B movies, and that is something that I commented on in a video dedicated to 5 filmmakers, 5 directors that you probably don't know also made film noir, because that's what essentially happened to me. I, for one, was quite in the dark when it comes to the noir efforts of Anthony Mann and other filmmakers that I comment on in that video. So if you're like me, you'll want to correct that as soon as possible, and that's what I did with Anthony Mann. But again, Desperate is a fantastic way to see the evolution of Anthony Mann and discover what we could also call the Anthony Mann touch in some instances, because again, Desperate, aside from having a very brisk and quick and intense pace, it also contains several scenes that formally, and because of the way they are lit, really point towards a visually charged and psychologically intense narration, something that he truly got to develop in his subsequent films. And this is something that again I think influenced Western a lot, especially the use of extreme close-ups and the looks of the characters, but that are quite impressive to watch in a noir film. There is particularly a scene that reminds me a lot of one scene that we commented from the film Crossfire, also released in 1947 and also released by RKO. It is one particular year in which film noir truly got to explode, and especially in a studio like again RKO, and for actors like Robert Mitchum in Out of the Past, Robert Ryan, and in here with Raymond Burr, and also Steve Brodie, who also appeared in films like again Out of the Past. So we might say in a way that this movie is also a testament of the great legacy of RKO in film noir, and also of that specific year of 1947 as one of the years in which film noir got a creative boost, if we could call it that. Aside from the fantastic skills of Anthony Mann, I also have to mention obviously the cinematography by George E. Discant, and although Anthony Mann's most acclaimed cinematographer collaboration in film noir comes from his association with John Alton, George Discant's work in Desperate is not one you can easily forget. At least that's been my experience, hence why I'm here discussing the movie. This was only George Discant's third credit as a cinematographer and also his first noir film. But as I said, particularly in Discant's case, his imprint in film noir continued to be essential, creating distinct atmospheres for movies such as They Live by Night, The Narrow Margin, Beware My Lovely, or Kansas City Confidential. Also another very prominent reason why I chose to talk about Desperate, aside from Anthony Mann's work, the cinematographer, is, as I was commenting also, the fantastic contribution of Raymond Burr and Steve Brodie. I have to confess that, as I've said in other videos, Raymond Burr is an actor that is a favorite in my family, mainly because of his part of Perry Mason, but anytime he plays a villain in a movie, especially in noir films, it is such a treat. And to know, as I learned, he was in fact suggested as a villain by Steve Brodie, who had just worked with him in a B-Western called Code of the West. This was before Raymond Burr became famous for Perry Mason, and after that happened, he got to return the favor to Brodie by casting him in several episodes of the famous TV series. So that is quite a terrific story to learn, and I have to say that the chemistry they have in Desperate, in terms of the hero and his nemesis, is quite impressive. The tension between them in the scenes they have together plays out so well. It is one again of the main reasons to watch Desperate. Also in the film we have Jason Roberts Sr., who was the father obviously of Jason Roberts. In Desperate he plays a detached police inspector. He doesn't have many scenes, but the ones he has, he really makes them worth your while. Also Audrey Long, who plays Steve Brodie's character's wife of Polish descent. There are a couple of scenes which include a Polish wedding, who also appeared in 1947 in another fantastic film directed by Robert Wise called Born to Kill, with Claire Trevor and Lawrence Tierney, and she was an effective leading lady for Desperate, also with good chemistry with Steve Brodie. So essentially what you can find in Desperate is all the best qualities of a B-movie by RKO, one of its more incipient examples of the talent of several people like Anthony Mann, George E. Discant, and Raymond Burr, in a story that is gripping, that is thrilling, and that it only lasts 73 minutes. Desperate is certainly a film to discover if you haven't already. As always, thank you so much for joining me today for this Noirvember challenge. Thank you so much for watching and for your love for classic movies. As always, take care, stay safe, and see you all soon with another noir video. Bye!